All right, Miles, let's show everybody the MEAC remaining schedule because in these last 2 weeks, it's not a slam dunk. Some people are like, well, Central had their chance. They're not done. Central can cause some havoc this weekend. Actually, it's a Friday night game, if I'm not mistaken.
Why do we have something's off? Oh, never mind. Never mind. I'm off.
You sure?
Go ahead.
Okay, you sure? Because I took time with this graphic now. Don't be talking about my graphic. All right, so Friday night, North Carolina Central is hosting South Carolina State. If they beat South Carolina State, that'll make it interesting because Delaware State is not locked. South Carolina State is not locked. So that's going to be really the game of the weekend. South Carolina State Central in Durham. South Carolina State, they've got a gauntlet here the last 2 weeks. They got to beat 2 of the top 3 teams in the MEAC in Central and Delaware State.
This is, dang, Miles, can I look at the graphic?
She had to critique it first. Now,
No,
now she's
I'm like taking it in and then boom, it's gone. But I mean, wow, like this is intense. This is intense. North Carolina Central essentially needs Delaware State to lose out, and they need a win out, and they need South Carolina. They need South Carolina and Delaware State to lose out.
Well, they can control South Carolina State losing.
Yeah, but essentially, yes, they need to win out, and they need both of them to lose.
Well, both of them can't lose out because they play each other in the final.
So then, what's the scenario for Central?
All right, let's bring up the standings, Miles, because this is what happens every year in the MEAC. You've got to start doing math. All right, so Delaware State and South Carolina State. Potentially, Delaware State could lose 2 games, right? So they could be sitting at 3-2. North Carolina Central could win 2 games and be 4-1, right? South Carolina State could be 3. They could lose to Central, but if Delaware State lost 2, that means South Carolina State won. So they could be 4-1. Central could be 4-1, and they would have the tiebreaker over South Carolina State if they.
So Central needs Delaware State to lose out, and they need to win out, essentially, because North Carolina Central winning out includes beating South Carolina State.
Correct.
Okay.
Right. So if Delaware State win, and help us out here, Professor. If Delaware State wins against Howard, then the worst they can do is 4-1. And if South Carolina State loses to Central but beats Delaware State, then they would be 4-1, and they would own the tiebreaker over Delaware State by beating them.
Essentially,
but if North Carolina Central beats South Carolina State and wins their last game, then they too would be 4-1. So Central would own the tiebreaker over South Carolina State because if they hypothetically beat them, but Central would not own the tiebreaker over Delaware State. So it'd be a 3-way tie, and then we'd have to go to something else. And this is how the MEAC ends every year.
I feel like it's going to come down to that. It's just going to come down to Delaware State, South Carolina State, last game of the season.
I mean, that would be.
That's the simplest way to look at it.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what it's going to come down.
Less math involved that way.
Yeah. Essentially.
If South Carolina State beats Central, Delaware State beats Howard, then we'll have the de facto MEAC Championship game, final game at Delaware State of the regular season.
Right.
Too much stress, man.
What do you think is going to happen, Wilton? That could happen. What do you think is going to happen?
I think Delaware State's gonna win this game. It's gonna be a test, and I think that. But the beauty of that is this is a team that's been tested all season, and we've seen week after week. And to Simone's point, she's been stressed, but like there have been times where Delaware State has looked really, really great. They've looked dominant. And then there are times where they've been quiet. And when I say quiet, meaning like the inconsistency sometimes when it comes to the offense, like we saw them struggle a little bit when it came to Norfolk State in that first half. And then we've also seen where they've given up some big explosive plays on defense that have come back to hurt them in a way, although they found a way to win the game. So I think when you start talking about these next 2 games against 2 premier programs in the MEAC that know what it feels like to get to or knows what it feels like to win a MEAC championship, I think it's going to be more so of making sure that Deshaun Jackson says, like, okay, we have to get to a different level of intensity these next 2 weeks. That's not to say you change up your game plan, you change up how practice goes, things like that. But there's a bigger sense of urgency that's going to be needed because you've never been here before. Like your last winning season was what, 2012? And the last time you won a MEAC title was 2007. So there's, you talk about math, that's more than 5 years in between both of those. So to be able to know, or to be able to make sure that your players are locked in, you have to start and making sure that, obviously, making sure that they're still doing the little things that have really, really helped them get to this point, but also keeping that major sense of urgency that we can't let up in any particular ways if we want to beat these premier MEAC programs to earn the crown of getting the MEAC championship.